Hi folks, welcome back. Today we're talking about the latest video calling me out, this time from the H3 orbit, specifically their after-hour show with Harley Finkelstein and some other panelists. I don't know. As usual, they're reacting to my content, and as usual, it's almost entirely ad hominem. They're reacting to the Jubilee debate, which we already covered in the last video, a debate that was heavily edited, where so-called fact checks were dishonestly used as rebuttals because Isaiah Martin was unable to produce a substantive rebuttal of his own in real time. Now, right out the gate, before engaging with a single claim I made in the debate, the panel frames me as a former insider of H3 who snapped, who grifted, and who costumed himself into politics. This is not argumentation. This is pre-argument inoculation. See, my position is framed as inauthentic before it's even examined by the panel. They focus on visual changes, appearance, campaign branding, and treat those as proof of bad faith. Past behavior is used to imply present dishonesty. This is classic poisoning the well. They need this framing because, as we've seen repeatedly, people on the left are unable to argue point by point or fact by fact, so instead they rely on character framing as a crutch to hold up their narrative. Now, needless to say, this framing allows a panel to avoid treating my arguments as sincere or worthy of evaluation at all. See, once I am cast as a character, all of my claims no longer require rebuttal. Mockery becomes sufficient. So, needless to say, they rely on tactics like argument substitution throughout their reaction. My arguments are almost never addressed directly. Instead, they substitute it for commentary on my appearance, my career arc, Jubilee's format, and whether debate shows are good for discourse. None of that responds to my homelessness spending figures that I presented in the debate, my claim about party enforcement against moderates, my corruption argument regarding officials' net worth increases after entering office, or my use of force and deportation data claims. This is textbook substitution, replacing the question, is the claim true, with, do we actually like the person making the claim? Unsurprisingly, this leads to a mischaracterization of my core claim. My debate claim is provocative but conditional. Democrats hate America. Prove me wrong. The argument that follows defines what I mean by hate through policy outcomes, Democrat corruption, hostility toward national symbols, as Isaiah demonstrated saying he doesn't like the American flag, party enforcement against dissent, and economic harm to working Americans. The reaction panel repeatedly reframes this as, he literally thinks half the country hates America, or he's just doing a MAGA bit, or this is libs of TikTok bait. That's not what I argued. That's a straw man. A literalist caricature replacing the policy-based definition I actually advanced. Now, additionally, they also treat Jubilee's on-screen fact checks as mic drops rather than analytical tools. For example, the homelessness bond correction that Jubilee presents is used to dismiss my broader claim about lack of accountability, even though my argument concerns systemic failure and missing outcomes, not the precise mechanics of a bond the way that Jubilee tried to frame the fact check. As I've already pointed out, fact checks on Isaiah were either absent or used to reinforce his claims, while fact checks against me were selectively deployed as rebuttals. Jubilee is a neutral here, folks. They're actively participating in the debate on one side. Anyone considering going on that show, by the way, should understand that you're not just debating the other participant. You're debating the producers as well. Now, additionally, it should be said that correcting a detail does not invalidate a structural claim. Anyone with basic reasoning capacity understands that, yet the H3 panel treats factual precision as dispositive without engaging the argument those facts were supposed to support. The same problem appears in their treatment of wealth and corruption. I argue that enrichment through public office, especially when paired with insider trading or lack of transparency, is anti-American. Their response immediately shifts to Donald Trump's net worth and treats all wealth accumulation as equivalent. That's a false equivalence, as I pointed out, but Jubilee cut out of the episode. I explicitly distinguish in my response to Isaiah between pre-office private enterprise and wealth accumulation resulting from office access or policy power. They collapse that distinction and then accuse me of hypocrisy without ever addressing the difference that I'm pointing to. Now, all that said, their discussion of ICE and deportation is another example of their rhetorical overload technique. Their reaction relies on rapid interruptions, shifting definitions of criminal, convicted, and civil offense, and appeals to moral intuition rather than actual legal categories. Rather than clarifying which DHS data set I'm citing, what criminal means in ICE statistics, or the distinction between border and interior removals, They framed the exchange as me being in over my head. The confusion, largely caused by Isaiah citing a UCLA Berkeley study as though it's DHS data and Jubilee never correcting it, is pinned entirely on me, instead of being treated as evidence that the issue is complex and contested and that Jubilee never actually did their job. Ironically, that supports my broader critique of oversimplified narratives pushed by the left, something I've been talking about over the last few videos. Now, from there, the H3 panel falls back on the classic genetic fallacy. They repeat the usual accusations. The right is an easy grift. This is all costume politics, cloud farming, Republican robot. This attacks why I'm arguing instead of whether my arguments are correct. It's also demonstrably dishonest. I've been making videos from this perspective for years with virtually no financial or clout return. My views have steadily declined as a result of me talking from this perspective. I'm pretty much shadow banned on YouTube at this point. Most people can't even find my channels. So needless to say, that's not a grift. It's actually quite the opposite. I'm doing this for the love of the game because I believe what I'm saying, not because it benefits me in any sort of way. I'm literally not getting anything out of this. Now, even if their motive accusations were true, they would still be irrelevant. They don't address whether my policy critiques are accurate, whether my data is wrong, or whether my logic fails. They just willingly choose to replace refutation with speculation. Now, finally, when they run out of things to nitpick, they expand the scope to avoid resolution, pivoting to Jubilee's format, Canadian politics, internet memes, and hypothetical celebrity campaigns that Trisha Paytas is running for some reason. This delusion tactic avoids settling any of the substantive disputes raised in the debates. See, my argument is narrow and standards-based. Their response is broad, cultural, and performative. Bottom line, from an analytical standpoint, the H3 After Hours reaction does not systematically engage any of my claims. Actually, it substitutes character framing for any sort of rebuttal. It relies on strawman interpretations. It uses fact checks selectively as rhetorical weapons, collapses distinctions I explicitly draw, and treats disagreement as evidence of bad faith. Functionally, it's not a counter-argument. It's just fluttering around, pretending like you're doing something. And that reinforces my larger critique that I presented in my other videos. Controversial claims today are often neutralized not through evidence or logic, but through social framing, ridicule, and motive speculation, making real debate impossible. The left has given up on actually having a conversation, and that's what these creators are a great example of, which is unfortunate because we live in a time when debate is needed more than ever. It's by debate. It's through debate that you actually clarify which ideas are good. That said, if you're not informed enough to have these sorts of debates and discussions, then maybe don't have them at all. Maybe just talk about the Grammys. Anyway, folks, thanks so much for watching. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.